The mop moved across the floor in slow, steady circles. Park Taman worked alone in the empty training hall, just like he did every night. The lights were dim. Most cadets were asleep in their quarters. This was his favorite time, when the academy was quiet and still. He wore the same gray uniform he always wore. His name tag read, Maintenance Staff, in 3 languages. Nobody really looked at him, anyway. To the cadets, he was just part of the background, like the walls or the floors. That was exactly how he wanted it. Taman pushed his cleaning cart down the long corridor. His footsteps echoed softly. He was 43 years old, average height, with dark hair that was starting to gray at the temples. His hands were rough and scarred, but most people never noticed. They never looked that closely. The Vraxis Prime Military Academy was huge. It floated in space, a massive station where the galaxy's best and brightest came to learn warfare and tactics. Dozens of alien species studied here. There were the tall Manthar with their insect-like features, the reptilian Thaxians with their scales and sharp teeth, the bird-like avians with their quick movements. Humans were rare here. Maybe 20 out of 3,000 cadets and staff. Taman reached the cafeteria. Inside, Choi Unji was wiping down the last table. She looked up and smiled. Unji was in her 50s. With kind eyes and quick hands, she had worked at the academy for 7 years. Late night again, Taman? She asked. Same as always, he replied, returning her smile. Unji shook her head. You know, I still don't understand you. You've been here 5 years. Never complain. Never ask for better shifts. You could apply for a teaching position. I've seen your file. You have education. You have experience. Taman's smile faded just a little. I like the quiet work. Everyone needs more than quiet, Unji said gently. She sat down at one of the tables and gestured for him to join her. After a moment, he did. Do you ever miss Earth? She asked. Sometimes, Taman said. But this place is peaceful. Nobody bothers me. I do my work, I go to my room, I read. It's a good life. Unji studied his face. You're running from something. Taman didn't answer. His eyes drifted to the window, where stars stretched out forever. In the darkness of space, we all have our reasons for being here. Unji said finally. I won't push. But if you ever want to talk, I'm here. Thank you, Taman said quietly. He stood up and went back to his cart. As he left the cafeteria, Unji watched him go. She saw the way he moved, always aware of his surroundings. She saw how his eyes checked every corner before he entered a room. She knew a soldier when she saw one, even if he was carrying a mop instead of a gun. The next day, Taman was cleaning near the combat dome. This was the Academy's pride, a massive spherical chamber where cadets trained in holographic simulations. It could recreate any battlefield, any enemy, any condition. The technology was incredible. 2 Thaxian cadets were walking down the hallway. Their scales were deep green, and they wore the red training uniforms of second-year students. Their names were Vex and Kroll. Taman had seen them before. They were loud, aggressive, always trying to prove themselves. Taman kept his head down and continued mopping. He had learned long ago that being invisible was the best defense. Watch it, human, Vex said, deliberately walking through the wet floor Taman had just cleaned. My apologies, Taman said softly, moving aside. Kroll laughed. Look at him, Vex. This is what humans are. We keep hearing stories about how dangerous they are. But look, he's cleaning our floors. Scary, Vex said with heavy sarcasm. He stepped closer to Taman. Hey, Janitor. Is it true humans are warriors? You don't look like much. Taman kept his eyes down. I'm just maintenance staff, sir. Please excuse me. He tried to push his cart past them, but Kroll stuck out his foot. The cart tipped over. Bottles of cleaning solution crashed to the floor. Blue liquid spread across the hallway. Oops, Kroll said, grinning. Taman took a slow breath. His hands clenched for just a moment, then relaxed. He got down on his knees and started picking up the bottles. See? Vex said to Kroll. Pathetic. All those whispers about humans being dangerous? It's all lies. They're soft. Weak. They probably bought their way into the galactic community. Yeah, Kroll agreed. I bet this one has never even held a weapon. They walked away laughing. Taman stayed on the floor, carefully cleaning up the mess. His hands were steady, but inside, old memories were stirring. Memories he had spent 5 years trying to bury. That night, Taman lay in his small quarters. The room was simple. A bed, a desk, a small bookshelf. On the wall was a single picture of mountains on Earth. Under his bed was a locked box. He never opened it anymore. Sleep didn't come easily. It never did. When he closed his eyes, he saw faces, heard voices, remembered things he wished he could forget. Around 3 a.m, he finally drifted off. His dreams were filled with fire and screaming, with the sound of weapons and the smell of smoke. He woke up an hour later, covered in sweat. Taman got up and made tea. He sat by his small window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth. Somewhere out there were the planets where he had fought, where he had lost everything that mattered. He had come here to escape that life. He had thought that if he made himself small enough, quiet enough, the past would leave him alone. But the past never really leaves. It just waits. Over the next few days, Vex and Kroll made Taman's life difficult. They would find him in hallways and make him move out of their way. They knocked over his cleaning supplies. They spread rumors among the other cadets that humans were cowards who hid behind technology. Other cadets started to notice. Some looked away, uncomfortable. Others joined in the mockery, though less directly. Taman became a target, a joke, the quiet human janitor, who never fought back. Unji saw what was happening. Report them, she urged one evening in the cafeteria. This is harassment. Commander Ashara would stop it. Taman shook his head. It's nothing. Just young cadets being foolish. It will pass. It's getting worse, Unji insisted. I don't like where this is going. When I don't like where this is going. End quote. She was right to worry. Vex and Kroll were drinking heavily that week. They had failed an important tactical exam, and their instructor had humiliated them in front of their class. They needed to feel powerful again, and Taman was an easy victim. On the 5th night, Taman was working near the combat dome again. It was late, past midnight. The training facility was supposed to be closed, but he heard voices inside the control room. Vex and Kroll stumbled out, clearly drunk on Thaxian combat stim drinks. Their eyes were unfocused, their movements aggressive. Behind them, several other cadets followed. Word had spread that something was going to happen. There he is, Vex said loudly. Our favorite human. Taman straightened up from his work. He calculated the distance to the nearest exit. Too far. Too many cadets blocking the path. His heart rate increased, but his face remained calm. Excuse me, he said politely. I need to finish cleaning this area. No, Kroll said, moving to block his path. We want to see something. We want to see a human fight. More cadets were gathering now. 30, maybe 40 of them. Some looked excited. Others looked nervous. None of them stepped forward to help. I don't fight, Taman said quietly. I'm just a janitor. Please let me pass. Just a janitor, Vex mocked. He pushed Taman backward. But your people have this reputation. Everyone whispers about humans, about how scary they are in combat. We think it's all lies. Taman stumbled back but kept his balance. His breathing was controlled. His hands stayed at his sides. I'm not a soldier. You have the wrong person. Then prove it, Kroll said. He grabbed Taman by the arm and started dragging him toward the combat dome entrance. Taman could have resisted. His body knew how. His muscles remembered the training. But he forced himself to stay passive, to let them push him. "Stop this," someone called out. It was Yunji, pushing through the crowd. "Leave him alone." Two cadets held her back. She struggled but couldn't break free. The massive doors of the combat dome opened. Inside, the spherical chamber was dark. Holographic projectors lined the walls. Weapons racks stood ready. The floor was marked with training zones. Vex and Kroll shoved Taman inside. He fell to his knees, then slowly stood up. The doors sealed behind him. With a heavy sound. "Let's see what you can do, human," Vex shouted from the control room window. His claws moved over the console. "We're starting a simulation. Something fun." Wait, one of the other cadets said. "A female avian. You need authorization for combat simulations. And he's not wearing protective gear." "Shut up," Kroll snapped. "We're just going to scare him a little. Show everyone what humans really are." The lights in the dome changed to red. A holographic interface appeared in the air, displaying text in multiple languages. Taman read it and felt ice fill his stomach. Simulation. Krellick's swarm invasion. Difficulty. Level 7. Recommended participants. 5-person squad. Safety protocols. Overridden. "No," Taman said, his voice louder now. "Stop this. You don't understand." But Vex had already hit the start button. The drunk Thaxian was laughing. "Show us what you've got, Janitor." The chamber went dark. Then slowly, shapes began to appear. Holographic enemies materialized all around Taman. The Krelliks were savage creatures, insect-like with blade arms and armored bodies. They were designed to test advanced combat tactics. 50 of them surrounded Taman in a tightening circle. Outside, the cadets pressed against the viewing windows. Some were laughing, others looked worried. Yunji was crying, trying to reach the control panel. But the drunk cadets blocked her. In the center of the dome, Taman stood perfectly still. His head was down, his shoulders were slumped. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, his posture changed. His back straightened, his head lifted. When he looked up, his eyes were different. The kind, tired look was gone. Something cold and focused had replaced it. He rolled his shoulders, cracked his neck, took a deep breath. "I promised myself I was done with this," he whispered to the empty air. The Krelliks charged at him from all sides, their holographic blades gleaming under the red lights. Their screeches filled the chamber, a sound designed to terrify. Taman didn't run. He didn't call for help. Instead, he did something that made every cadet outside freeze in shock. He moved forward to meet them. His hand shot out and grabbed a training baton from a nearby rack. His body dropped low, sliding under the first Krelliks's blade. He came up inside its guard and struck its throat with precision. The hologram flickered and vanished. 2 more came from his left. Taman spun, using the first one's momentum against it, throwing it into the second. Before they could recover, he had already moved on to the next target. It wasn't fighting. It was something else. Something efficient and terrible. The cadets outside stopped laughing. They watched, in growing silence, as the human janitor moved through the simulation like a machine. Every movement had purpose. Every strike was exact. There was no wasted motion, no hesitation. "What is he?" someone whispered. Vex's smile had vanished. He stared at the control panel, his drunkenness fading fast. I should stop this." "You can't," the avian cadet said, checking the console. "You overrode the protocols. The simulation won't stop until it's complete, or he falls." Inside the dome, Taman fought. And deep inside his mind, Memories he had buried for 5 years began to surface. Memories of other battles, other enemies, other times when he had been forced to become something more than human to survive. 3 minutes had passed. Taman had eliminated 20 Krelliks. The cadets watching couldn't believe what they were seeing. This wasn't academy fighting. This was something else entirely. Taman used everything around him. When his baton broke, he picked up a piece of the holographic environment, a section of debris. When that dissolved, he took a blade from a fallen enemy. He used walls for cover, creating choke points where the Krelliks could only attack one at a time. How does he know to do that? A cadet asked. That's advanced tactical positioning. Look at his patterns, another said. A Manthar, who studied military history. That's Fourth Doctrine combat style. The one humans used in the frontier wars. It's banned in most sectors because it's too brutal. Inside Taman's mind, memories crashed through like waves. He wasn't in the combat dome anymore. He was back on Garon Prime, 20 years ago. The air smelled like burning metal. Around him, his unit was fighting for their lives. Captain Park, we need to fall back. Someone shouted, but there was nowhere to fall back to. They had to hold the line. If they failed, 5,000 colonists would die. Hold position, his younger self had ordered. We hold until relief arrives. They held for 40 days. In the present, Taman's body moved on instinct. The simulation spawned more enemies. The difficulty increased. 50 became 60, then 70. Armored variants appeared, bigger and stronger. Vex was frantically hitting controls. It's not stopping. The system is glitching. The override is making it escalate. Shut it down, Unji screamed. I can't. I don't have the codes. Kroll had gone pale. We need to call Commander Ishara. She'll expel us, Vex said. Better expelled than responsible for killing someone, the avian cadet snapped, already running for the communication panel. Inside the dome, Taman cleared another wave. He was breathing hard now, sweat pouring down his face. His janitor uniform was torn. Blood dripped from a cut on his arm where he hadn't moved fast enough, but his eyes remained focused. Cold. He had gone somewhere else in his mind. Somewhere the pain couldn't reach. More memories surfaced. He remembered the last day of the Garon campaign. The final assault. He had lost 12 soldiers that day. Good people. Friends. He remembered carrying Lieutenant Kim's body out of the burning building. Remembered holding Private Yoon's hand as she died. Remembered the way Sergeant Han had smiled, even as the life left his eyes. I'm sorry, Taman whispered as he fought. I'm so sorry. The simulation didn't care about his apology. It spawned the final challenge. A massive holographic form materialized at the far end of the dome. The Krelliks war chief stood 8 feet tall. Its armor was thick. Its blade arms were as long as a human was tall. This enemy was designed for a full squad, with heavy weapons to fight together. It was meant to be the graduation trial's final boss. Taman faced it alone with a broken piece of metal pipe. He can't win that, someone in the crowd said. Nobody has ever beaten a war chief solo. He needs to run, another said. Hide until we can get help. But Taman didn't run. He walked forward, his steps steady. The war chief roared and charged. Its massive blade came down in an overhead strike that would split a man in half. Taman moved at the last second. The blade hit the floor where he had been standing. Before the war chief could recover, Taman was on its arm, running up toward its head. The creature tried to shake him off. Its other arm swung around. Taman jumped, using the momentum to flip over its shoulder. As he passed its head, he drove the pipe into the gap in its neck armor. The war chief stumbled. Taman landed, rolled, and came up with the creature's own blade in his hands. It was heavy, designed for something much stronger than a human. That didn't matter. Taman had carried wounded soldiers across battlefields. He had held bunker doors closed against enemy charges. His body remembered how to do impossible things. The war chief turned. Taman charged. They met in the center of the dome. What happened next took less than 10 seconds. Taman used the blade like a lever, deflecting the war chief's attacks and using its strength against it. He found every weakness in its armor, every joint, every gap. The final strike came as Taman spun under its guard and drove the blade up into the creature's chest. The war chief's hologram flickered, glitched, then exploded into pixels. Silence filled the dome. The red lights changed to white. The simulation ended. Simulation complete. Enemies eliminated. 150. Time. 12 minutes. 34 seconds. Casualties. 0. New Academy record. Taman stood in the center of the chamber. The blade fell from his hands. His legs shook. Then, he dropped to his knees. The cold focus left his eyes. The memories crashed over him all at once. He wasn't holding a weapon anymore. He was holding Kim's body. He was watching Yoon die. He was standing at Han's grave. Tears streamed down his face. His hands shook, violently. He wrapped his arms around himself and bent forward until his forehead touched the floor. "No," he whispered. "No, no, no. I promised." The doors opened. The crowd of cadets stood frozen. Nobody knew what to say. They had just watched their janitor become something else. Something terrifying. Unji pushed through and ran inside. She dropped to her knees beside Taman and pulled him into her arms. He was shaking like a leaf. "It's okay," she said, though tears ran down her own face. "It's over. You're safe." "I killed them all again," Taman said, his voice broken. "I saw their faces. Unji. I saw them all. It was a simulation," she said firmly. "Nobody died today. You're here. You're safe." Vex and Kroll stood at the entrance, their faces pale with horror. They had wanted to humiliate a weak human. Instead, they had awakened something they didn't understand. "What have we done?" Kroll whispered. An alarm sounded throughout the station. Commander Ishara's voice came over the intercom. Sharp and angry. "All cadets report to your quarters immediately. Vex and Kroll, report to my office. Now." The crowd scattered. Within minutes, only Yoonji and Taemin remained in the dome. She helped him to his feet. He could barely walk, not from physical injury, but from the weight of everything he had remembered. "Come on," Unji said gently. "Let's get you to medical." "I don't need medical," Taemin said. I need to be alone." "Not happening," Unji said firmly. "You're not being alone tonight." She guided him out of the dome. As they walked through the empty corridors, Taemin kept his eyes down. He didn't want to see his reflection in the windows, didn't want to see the person he had been forced to become again. Somewhere ahead, Commander Ishara was reviewing the security footage. She watched it 3 times, her expression growing more serious with each viewing. Then she opened Taemin's personnel file, the one marked with red security seals. The classified one that listed his real background. Captain Park Taemin, Human Expeditionary Forces, 22 years of service, 17 major campaigns, holder of the Star of Valor. Survivor of the Garan campaign. Under reason for discharge, it said simply, sole survivor of unit, severe PTSD, honorable retirement. Commander Ishara closed the file and sat back in her chair. She had just learned what many in the galaxy already whispered about, but few truly understood. Humans were not the strongest species, not the fastest or the toughest, but they were perhaps the most dangerous, because they refused to give up, they refused to die. And when you pushed them into a corner, they became something that even they themselves feared. Taemin didn't sleep that night. Unji stayed with him in his quarters, sitting quietly while he stared at the wall. She had made tea, but it sat untouched on his desk, growing cold. "I spent 5 years building a new life," Taemin said finally, his voice hollow. 5 years proving to myself that I could be something other than a weapon. And it took 12 minutes to destroy all of that. You didn't destroy anything, Yunji said. They forced your hand. You survived. That's what you do. Surviving is all I'm good at, Taemin said bitterly. Everyone else died. Kim, Yoon, Han, Doyun. All of them. But I kept living. Do you know what that feels like? To be the only one who made it out? Unji moved to sit beside him. Yes, she said quietly. I lost my daughter in the colony raids. She was 17. I survived because I was visiting Earth that month. So yes, Taemin, I know exactly what that feels like. He looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time. Saw the pain in her eyes that matched his own. I'm sorry, he whispered. Don't be sorry. Be here. Be present. That's how we honor them. By living fully. Not hiding in closets and mopping floors at midnight. Before Taemin could respond, there was a knock at the door. Unji answered it. A young avian officer stood there, looking nervous. The commander wants to see Park Taemin. Now, Taemin stood slowly. His body ached from the fight, but that pain was nothing compared to the exhaustion in his soul. He followed the officer through empty corridors. It was nearly dawn. Most of the station was still asleep. Commander Ishara's office was large and filled with military decorations from a dozen species. She stood by the window, her insectoid features unreadable. When Taemin entered, she turned to face him. Sit, she commanded. Taemin sat. He kept his hands on his knees, his back straight. Old military habits never really died. Who are you really? Ishara asked, her voice sharp. Park Taemin, maintenance staff, employee number. Stop, Ishara interrupted. She pulled up a holographic display. Taemin's military record appeared, floating in the air between them. Captain Park Taemin, Human Expeditionary Forces, 22 years of service. The list of operations you participated in goes on for pages. Tell me, Captain, why is a decorated war hero cleaning floors at my academy? Taemin looked at his hands. I'm not a captain anymore. That doesn't answer my question. I wanted peace, Taemin said simply. After Garon, after losing my entire unit, I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't lead soldiers, couldn't give orders that got people killed. So I came here. I thought if I could be around warriors without being one, maybe I could find some kind of peace. Ishara studied him for a long moment. You lied on your application. I didn't lie. I just didn't mention my past. You asked if I had any criminal record. I don't. You asked if I had maintenance experience. I do. Everything I wrote was true, but incomplete. Yes, Taemin admitted. Incomplete. Ishara sat down at her desk. She pulled up the security footage from the combat dome and played it. Together, they watched Taemin fight through the simulation. Even now, watching himself, Taemin felt sick. I've seen many warriors in my career, Ishara said. But I have never seen anything like this. You eliminated 150 enemies in 12 minutes. The previous academy record was 40 enemies by a team of 5, and it took them 20 minutes. You broke our system. The simulation wasn't designed for someone who fights like you do. I fight like someone who wants to survive, Taemin said. Nothing more. No. Ishara corrected. You fight like someone who has lost everything and refuses to lose anything else. There's a difference. She closed the footage and looked at him directly. Vex and Kroll have been expelled. This kind of hazing violates every protocol we have. But I need to decide what to do with you. 2. I understand if you want me to leave, Taemin said. Leave? No. I'm wondering if you should be teaching here instead of cleaning. Taemin's head snapped up. No, absolutely not. I can't teach combat. I can't stand in front of young cadets and teach them how to kill efficiently. That's not who I want to be. What if you taught them something else? Ishara asked. What if you taught them about the cost of war? About what it really means to be a warrior? These cadets, they come here thinking war is glorious. They think it's about honor and victory. You could show them the truth. I don't know if I can. Think about it, Ishara said. You have a week. In the meantime, you'll continue your current duties. But Taemin, no more hiding. The whole academy knows now. You can't go back to being invisible. She was right. When Taemin left her office and walked through the corridors, cadets stared at him, some with fear, some with awe, some with curiosity. But none of them looked through him anymore. In the cafeteria, conversations stopped when he entered. He got his meal and sat alone. Within minutes, Yoonji joined him, pointedly sitting across from him and starting a normal conversation, as if nothing had changed. Other staff members followed her lead. The head engineer sat down. One of the medical officers. A teacher from the linguistics department. They formed a protective circle around Taemin, showing everyone that he was one of them. Taemin felt something warm in his chest. Gratitude, maybe. Or the beginning of healing. That afternoon, Instructor Quinn found him. The avian teacher had been off station during the incident and had only just returned. I failed you, Quinn said without preamble. I should have been here. I should have stopped this before it started. It's not your fault, Taemin said. I'm asking Commander Ishara to let me make it right, Quinn continued. I teach combat ethics. It's required for all third-year cadets. I want you to give a guest lecture. Just one. You don't have to teach them how to fight. Teach them why they shouldn't want to. Taemin wanted to refuse. But he saw the sincerity in Quinn's eyes. Saw the guilt the instructor carried. For not being there. To protect him. One lecture, Taemin agreed. But I do it my way. Over the next week, word spread throughout the academy about the human janitor. Stories grew with each telling. Some cadets claimed he had fought 1,000 enemies. Others said he had killed the war chief with his bare hands. The truth was impressive enough. But myths always grew larger. Taemin tried to maintain his normal routine, but it was impossible. Cadets approached him with questions. Some wanted to challenge him. Others wanted to learn from him. He turned them all away politely but firmly. In his quarters at night, he finally opened the box under his bed. Inside were his medals, his old uniform, and photographs of his unit. He looked at each face, remembering their names, their stories. I'm sorry I survived when you didn't, he told the photographs. But I'm going to try to make it mean something. I'm going to try to help others avoid our fate. On the 7th day, he stood before a classroom of 60 third-year cadets. They watched him with a mixture of emotions. Fear, curiosity, respect, uncertainty. Taemin placed his medal box on the desk at the front of the room. He opened it and carefully laid out each medal. These are medals for valor, he began. Each one represents a battle where I did something the military considered heroic. Want to know what I remember about each one? The cadets leaned forward, eager to hear stories of glory. I remember the faces of the people who died, Taemin said quietly. Every medal is a reminder of someone who didn't come home. Someone's friend. Someone's family. Someone's hope for the future. Ended. The eagerness faded from the cadets' faces. Now, they just listened. For the next hour, Taemin told them the truth about war. Not the glory. Not the victory. The cost. 3 weeks after the Combat Dome incident, Commander Ishara called a special assembly. Every cadet in the academy filled the main hall. They whispered among themselves, wondering what this was about. Taemin stood backstage with Yoonji. He wore his maintenance uniform. As always. He had refused to wear his old military uniform, even though Ishara had suggested it. You don't have to do this, Yoonji said. Yes, I though, Taemin replied. If I don't, the myths will keep growing. They'll think I'm some kind of monster. Or worse, some kind of hero. You are a hero, Yoonji said firmly. Taemin shook his head. I'm just someone who survived. There's a difference. Commander Ishara stepped onto the stage. The hall fell silent. Her presence commanded respect from every species present. Cadets, she began. 3 weeks ago, an incident occurred that has caused much discussion. A human member of our staff was forced into a combat simulation. What happened that night has led to questions. Questions about humans. About their nature. About their place in our galaxy. The cadets listened intently. Many glanced around, looking for Taemin. Today, I'm going to answer those questions, Ishara continued. Many of you have heard whispers about humanity. Some of you wonder why a species so new to the galactic community is treated with such caution. Let me explain. She pulled up a holographic display. Images appeared in the air above the stage. Star maps. Battle reports. Historical records. Humans entered galactic society 80 years ago. In that time, they have been involved in 14 major conflicts. They did not start any of these wars, but they have never lost one. Murmurs spread through the crowd. 14 wars in 80 years seemed impossible. You may wonder how, Ishara said. Humans are not the strongest species. The Thaxians are stronger. They are not the fastest. The Avians are faster. They do not have natural armor like the Manthar. They have no venom, no claws, no biological weapons. By every physical measure, humans should be at the bottom of any combat ranking. She paused, letting that sink in. So why does the galaxy whisper about them? Why do military strategists study human tactics? Why do veterans from other species shake their heads when humans are mentioned? Ishara changed the display. Now it showed footage from various human conflicts. Not the combat dome incident, but real battles from frontier wars. Humans have something unique. They know they are fragile. They know they can die easily. And they absolutely refuse to accept it. The footage showed human soldiers in impossible situations. Outnumbered, outgunned, wounded, but still fighting. Most species in the galaxy have warrior traditions, Ishara explained. The Thaxians fight for honor. The Vreks fight for territory. The Manthar fight for the hive. These are noble reasons, and they produce excellent soldiers. She paused again, her voice growing softer but more intense. Humans fight because they are terrified. They fight because everything they love can be destroyed. They fight because they know, deep in their bones, that they are always one mistake away from extinction, and that fear makes them the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. The hall was completely silent now. Every cadet hung on her words. When you fight for honor, you can surrender when honor is satisfied. When you fight for territory, you can negotiate borders. When you fight for resources, you can trade. But when you fight because you are terrified that everything you love will be destroyed, you cannot stop. You will not stop. You will use every weapon, every tactic, every ounce of strength, until either you win or you die. Ishara changed the display again. Now it showed statistics. Human special forces, like the unit our staff member served in, take missions no other species will accept. Suicide runs. Hostage rescues in enemy territory. Last stands to buy time for evacuations. The survival rate in these units is 23%. 23%. That means 3 out of 4 humans who join these units will die. Gasps echoed through the hall. And yet, there is never a shortage of volunteers. Ishara continued. Because humans have this strange quality. They will sacrifice themselves for others without hesitation. Not because they are brave, because they are terrified of losing the people they love. She gestured to the side of the stage. Park Taemin, please come out. Taemin walked onto the stage. His steps were slow, reluctant. The thousands of cadets stared at him. This small, quiet human, in a maintenance uniform. This man served 22 years in the Human Expeditionary Forces, Ishara said. He participated in 17 major campaigns. He held an outpost for 40 days against impossible odds. He received the Star of Valor, the highest military honor humans award. And at the end, he was the sole survivor of his unit. Taman stood still, his eyes fixed on the floor. He came here to escape that life, Ishara continued. He wanted peace. He wanted to be something other than a weapon. And for 5 years, he succeeded. He was kind. He was quiet. He cleaned our floors and bothered nobody. She turned to face Taman directly. Until he was forced to fight. And in 12 minutes, he reminded us all why humans are whispered about. Ishara looked back at the cadets. So let me be clear. The human species is not superior. They are not gods of war. They are small, fragile beings who are aware of their own mortality every single day. But that awareness, that fear, that refusal to accept death, makes them adapt, makes them overcome, makes them survive. She paused one final time. And the ones who survive long enough become something that even they themselves fear. They become living weapons who understand the true cost of violence. That is why many humans you meet seem peaceful. That is why they avoid conflict, not because they are weak, but because they know exactly what they are capable of, and it terrifies them more than it terrifies you. Commander Ishara gestured to Taman. I'll let him speak now. Taman stepped forward. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he looked up at the thousands of young faces watching him. I don't want you to be like me, he said simply. His voice was quiet, but the hall's acoustics carried it to every corner. I don't want you to know what it feels like to hold your friend's hand while they die. I don't want you to carry the weight of survival when everyone else is gone. I don't want you to wake up at night seeing the faces of the people you couldn't save. He pulled out a photograph from his pocket. The image of his unit, taken before their final mission. 23 humans, smiling at the camera. These people trusted me, Taman said. They followed my orders. And I brought only one of them home. Myself. That is what war does. It doesn't matter if you win. The cost is still too high. He put the photograph away. So, when you train here, when you learn tactics and combat, remember this. Every technique you learn, every weapon you master, it's not for glory. It's not to prove you're strong. It's to protect the people who can't protect themselves. And if you're very lucky, you'll never have to use any of it. Taman looked at Commander Ishara, asking silently if he could go. She nodded. He walked off the stage, back into the shadows. But Ishara wasn't finished. Instructor Quinn will be restructuring the combat ethics course. Park Taman has agreed to serve as an advisor. He will not teach you how to fight. He will teach you why you should try not to. The assembly ended. Cadets filed out slowly, talking in hushed voices. Many of them looked at warfare differently now. Some questioned whether they wanted to continue their military careers. Others felt more committed, but for better reasons. Over the following months, things changed at the academy. Taman took on a new role, still doing maintenance work, but also advising the ethics department. He helped create a support group for combat veterans on the staff. Yoonji joined him. And together, they built something good from the pain. The day came when new cadets arrived for the year. Taman watched them from a maintenance corridor, just as he had done for 5 years. They looked so young, so eager, so unaware of what war really meant. One of the new cadets, a large Thaxian, pushed a smaller cadet, a shy Vrex female. The smaller one fell to the ground. Her belongings scattered across the floor. Instructor Quinn started to move forward, but Taman was already there. He walked out of the corridor, still in his maintenance uniform, and helped the small cadet to her feet. You okay? He asked gently. Yes, sir, she stammered. Taman turned to the Thaxian bully. The larger cadet recognized him immediately. His scales went pale. Here's your first lesson, Taman said calmly. Real strength isn't about proving you're tough. It's about knowing when you don't need to prove anything at all. Understand? Yes, sir, the Thaxian said quickly. I'm sorry. I'll help her with her things. Good, Taman said. He smiled. Welcome to the academy. Both of you. Treat each other well. Look out for each other. Because one day, you might be in a situation where all you have is each other. He helped gather the scattered belongings. The two cadets worked together, and Taman saw the beginning of what might become friendship. As he walked away, Unji appeared beside him. You're good at this. At what? At being human, she said. Not the scary kind. The kind that cares. Taman smiled. It was a real smile, genuine and warm. They walked together through the academy halls. Behind them, new cadets began their journey. Ahead of them, the stars stretched out into infinity. Taman had spent 5 years trying to hide from his past. Now he understood that he couldn't hide from it. He could only choose what to do with it. He could let it make him bitter and broken, or he could use it to help others avoid his fate. He chose to help, and in that choice, Park Taman finally found the peace he had been searching for. Not by running from who he had been, but by accepting it and choosing to be something more. The galaxy still whispered about humans, about their terrifying nature in combat, about their refusal to quit, about their capacity for violence. But now, at least at this one academy, they also whispered about their capacity for healing, for teaching, for taking broken pieces and building something better. That, Taman thought, was a much better legacy than medals in a box under his bed.